It's a big week for fossil fuels. The Northern Territory government is poised to lift its fracking moratorium and open up another carbon bomb, potentially adding 20% to Australia's emissions. That's due probably tomorrow or the next day. Meanwhile, overall, the pace of new fossil fuel project approvals continues as if there were no change of government from the last rabble. More integrity, more competence, certainly, than the coalition. But when it comes to fossil fuels and emissions, it doesn't appear that there's much change. So today we're going to take a quick look at what is the quintessential case of realpolitik, a government in Albo's Labor which desperately wants to do the right thing, keep its election commitments, contain Australia's exploding emissions, but to be a good global citizen as well. Unfortunately, that's the rub. Will he be on the right side of history? Time will tell. This is a government caught by the reality of customers, its global, international customers demanding supply, coal and gas, and of course, lobbying from the most powerful cartel in the country, the gas cartel. The other bit of news coming is that the Australia Institute is releasing its annual data on fossil fuel subsidies this week. We can't reveal the numbers, but we will say that it is very likely that $1 billion in fossil fuel subsidies going mostly to multinational foreign corporations, that is going to rise. It's very likely to show record subsidies paid by us to companies who have the benefit of extracting our resources, the resources of Australian citizens, from the soils and the seabeds. Why are we subsidising the most profitable companies on earth? Good question. The hard reality for Albo is that even while the gas giants are the worst tax dodgers on the planet as well, the highest revenues and the least in income tax, corporate income tax payments, they did kick in $200 billion of revenue, 70% profit margins going to exporters, the Shells, the Exxons, BHP and others. But they're going to balance Jim Chalmers' budget, which is coming up in a few days. And so it is that Albo and company are left with the drug dealers' defence. That is, if we don't supply it, somebody else will. Already we've seen the Japanese kicking and screaming about any minor tweaks or reforms to the fossil fuel corporate landscape, saying that global peace is at stake and this kind of thing. So what can we expect from the budget? Some tinkering with the miserable failed PRRT tax to lift a couple more percentage points in impost on export gas revenues, and some stuff probably around approvals buried at the same time. We asked Callum Foote, our reporter, to find the details on new fossil fuel project approvals this week for the past few days, and we've been stonewalled from pillar to post by the department, the Office of Environment, by the bureaucracy. They just don't want to have a database which is easy to find. For her part, the Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek has the trickiest job in government, no doubt about that, having to sign off on the likes of Woodside's polluting Scarborough project, funding for Barnaby Joyce's petrochemicals plant at Darwin, the massive new fertiliser plant, Perdaman in WA, which has just been given the green light. And of course, there was the North West Shelf expansion, 5 billion tonnes of emissions right there, a state government approval from WA. The last CSG project, Coal Seam Gas Project, given the thumbs up, was not announced. It was just buried by Plibersek's department in a department disclosure that Shell was given 50 years new licence to frack for gas in Queensland. A few hours earlier, the thing which had been made public was a small fund to help koala bears, replete with some cuddly koala pics with the minister. She did knock back a Clive Palmer coal mine in Queensland, but there are no votes lost, and there's not much political mileage lost either in hitting Clive Palmer's hip pocket. So the reality is that fossil fuel corporations are locking in as much supply as they possibly can for this century before the reality of climate change and demand brings the party to an end. To meet Australia's goal, it's got to reduce emissions, it's pledged to reduce emissions by 43% from 2005 by 2030. That's our commitment. It's not enough. And it may not be attained anyway, except by extreme data gymnastics. Such is the approval rate and new pollution coming online. It's not good, but sadly, this is the political reality. What we have is no slowing in the pace of new fossil fuel approvals. But there are some efforts to do a few things around the edges: gas caps, the PRRT inquiry, delayed decisions on approvals, a small compromise for the Greens on the safeguard mechanism. It's slow going. But as a looming report by IEFA is expected to detail, the market is moving ahead of governments, with 200 large global institutions, investors, shifting their policies on fossil fuel investments. With bucks like these at stake, governments will refuse to reform in any meaningful way, and reform will be left to the demand side, not supply. We've had production problems here at Michael West Media, at the West Report. We've had all sorts of things, a lawsuit and various other things. I had an ear operation, so sorry about the lack of content lately. We're now picking it up again. But thank you very much for your support during this difficult time, and we're going to pump out the content in the public interest. Thank you. Please like and comment on the video.